This is the Clint Eastwood most people know. Rough, ruthless, silent, violent, hard. Movie hard. But what is the real Clint Eastwood like? To find out, we travel to the place Clint calls home, where reality means wind and sand and water and space. Lots of space. Is that the attraction, Clint?
Yeah, I guess so. I was first introduced to this area when I was in the Army some years ago, and I came down here on a 2-day pass, and I just fell in love with it. I felt it was a kind of an area that if I ever ran across a few crumbs, I'd like to settle down and live. And in the last few years, I've traveled around the world quite a bit, and I still have never found any place that does it for me like this place does. So here I am, and here I stay.
But you don't spend much time in Hollywood these days, do you, Clint?
No. I think out of the last 6 or 7 years, I've done about half of one picture and a quarter of another in Hollywood. Most of my time has been, I guess because I started out on the international market. I was lucky with some European films. I've just continued to travel a lot in most of my work. I was in Austria for Where Eagles Dare, and then Two Mules for Sister Sarah we did down in Mexico, and I just got back from doing Kelly's Warriors in Yugoslavia.
Of course, it all started with your Italian movies, A Fistful of Dollars and the others. You set a style in those films. One critic wrote of your role, a silent and malevolent anti-hero cowboy. Why should that appeal to people?
Well, I think it's probably the mystique more than anything. I mean, the mystique of the hero that doesn't talk too much, you don't know too much about him. It stirs the imagination of the audience. And the audience can sort of imagine something about his background, and they also can identify with him and escape with him. The men can think that's the way I'd like to be. Of course, the one thing about the West, the Western, it's probably the last era as we know it, where man sort of was control of his own destiny. You know, he didn't rely on society to come to his aid. And I think it's just the escapism of it all.
You get so physically involved in all your movies. In Coogan's Bluff, you ride a motorcycle like a stuntman. In Two Mules for Sister Sarah, you're dragged, you fight, you leap. How do you manage to keep in such excellent physical condition?
Well, I train a lot, not only because it's my profession to stay in shape. I mean, it's good for my profession to stay in shape, but I train a little bit. When I'm up here in Carmel, I run the beach a lot, and I like to play a little tennis, a little golf, a little bit of everything. The motorcycle just happens to be a hobby for me. I rode a motorcycle most of my life before that picture came along, so that was no problem.
Well, what about the violence? Doesn't that kind of character encourage violence?
Not necessarily. I mean, I think it has encouraged violence in other movie makers for some imitations, but I think sometimes those things, especially satiric films like these, can have a certain catharsis, same as a boxing match or a football game.
You're just as hard and tough with the ladies. Is that the new romanticism?
No, that just happened in a couple of scripts. Ironically, both films done with Don Siegel, and though when you think back on it, a lot of the men who were rough with the ladies over the years have become extremely popular. The Cagneys and the Bogarts and some of these guys. But I think the ladies were always out of line, or it was an accidental roughness, one or the other.
And how did you like working with director Don Siegel in Two Mules for Sister Sarah?
Well, I liked working with him very much. We worked together once before in Coogan's Bluff, and I think he's a tremendous director. He has a lot of pace, a lot of feel, and he has a good feel for time. You know, his pictures all have a nice, crisp feel to them. Sister Sarah was a picture with just Shirley MacLaine and myself for 75% of the time on screen, and so it needed a director with that kind of a feeling for pace to make it a successful film.
And what was your role in the picture?
Well, I play a mercenary who runs across Shirley MacLaine out on the plains in Mexico, and she happens to be on a mission, and I accompany her on this mission. The difference between the two characters is that she's on this mission for idealistic reasons, and I'm for very financial reasons.
Clint, there's a bathtub scene in Coogan's Bluff, another one in Two Mules for Sister Sarah. In both of them, you get into the tub with the lady. Is this typical of your screen character?
Just clean ladies, that's all. No, it's not typical. It just happened in those two films that it was in the script. I think in Two Mules for Sister Sarah, it was written in the script before we ever received it. But in Coogan's Bluff, we had added it in there as a character study of this guy who was rebelling against the control of his boss. But in Two Mules for Sister Sarah, it always was in the script and is in there now.
In talking to the people you've worked with, one thing is mentioned again and again: how much you love animals and how gentle and kind you are with animals. Would you like to talk about that?
Well, I guess, I don't know. It's just I guess it's a safe thing, you know. You don't, animals are pretty loyal to you when you get involved with them, and they, it's like I have a reverence for life, I guess, of some sorts.
Do you ever go hunting?
No, I don't hunt. I target shoot a lot, and I shoot, but I don't hunt. It's not necessary. There was a time in our life when it was necessary to hunt to exist, but it isn't necessary these days, so I don't see any sport in it.
Clint, what makes you mad?
I don't know. I couldn't really pinpoint that down to the wire. I get mad. I used to get mad as a kid quite frequently. I seem to be controlling it better as the years go on.
One more question, Clint. What do you want to do next?
Well, next I'm doing another film with Don Siegel called The Beguiled, which will be produced by my company with Universal Films. And but if you're asking me what I'm going to do right this minute, I'm going to jump on my Norton and ride into town, have a sandwich or something. So I'll see you later, huh?